You take it away, Kimmy.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm only seeing my screen, so if there's something going on in the chat, just let me know. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, and I'll
Okay,
let you know if we have a comment or question in the room
perfect. Thank
or in the
you.
chat.
So I questioned whether I should list like the mid 90s because it definitely does date me. However, I think that's important to note is I was just getting started in domestic violence work and the entire like OJ thing happened. And that was kind of my first like national conversation about domestic violence. And it kind of fascinated me because, we had opinions. People said, yes, no, it was deserved. And so really, I think that's my first glimpse into the power of communications to address social service issues and to get people connected. So I do think it's important to date, when I got started, but hopefully I'm more relevant now. So I'm going to be talking to you about the Safe Connections Act. I've become passionate about this because rarely do I get to offer assistance or insight unless something has gone wrong at your agency. There's a crisis communication aspect that you're looking for technical assistance on. So the fact that I can give you something that hopefully will make your job easier, get you more proactive, better advocates for your clients, I'm really happy about that. So this is going to be the Safe Connections Act, and this is through the Federal Communications Commission, which is the FCC. And so this in the United States governs all of the communications, whether it's TV, cell phones, like we're going to talk about here, telephone connections. So it really is very big. And for them to carve out something related to cell phones and domestic violence, it's really actually kind of huge. So the FCC implemented this Safe Connections Act, and this was in support of domestic violence. What the FCC did was they spoke with large organizations that had hotlines, specifically national hotlines, the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and they really wanted to understand how survivors accessed and communicated with them. And overwhelmingly, and I know you probably know this with your clientele as well, but cell phones. Cell phones were such a crucial communications tool. And the FCC decided that they have to do something to make cell phone usage safer for victims of domestic violence. And when you understand this presentation, you're going to understand how crucial advocates are to the success of this program. In fact, I believe that advocates are the only way that this program is going to offer the support that they think they want it to provide to survivors. And I had this little highlighted, sentence that these protections that I'm talking about, they do extend to tribal lands. And so if you have any clients that are living on tribal lands, getting support through you, they can also get benefits through this program as well. So the rules were effective July 15th, 2024, but the conversations actually started with the public back in 2023. I think it was the fall of 2023 that, media was actually asking for, our opinion on this particular legislation. So why there was a lag in implementation. Now, if you can imagine, what it takes for non-social service folks to understand and change their business model. It did take some time for especially some of the larger carriers to kind of implement internal training and to make sure that it was distributed through all of their employees, especially management, to ensure that this is happening. So basically the line separation provisions under the Safe Connections Act, this is really kind of what we need to talk about in terms of advocates. And so this helps survivors separate their mobile lines from accounts that include their abusers. So the first one, the first rule that comes under this is it removes domestic violence victims from family billing plans and within 2 business days, which I think for For a government implementation, they really kind of understood the crisis nature of when a survivor goes and makes this request. So within 2 business days upon request, this also includes any minor children with a separate phone line and who are in the custody of the survivor. Now, if you can imagine, if the survivor leaves the family billing plan, but, they have a child in common, the abuser could also track them and kind of, figure out where the victim could be, appearing next, at school, at work, whatever. So if there are any minor children under this family plan, it will also remove them as well. And so this Connections Act also provides low-cost emergency phones to survivors who need one. And I want to basically keep in mind, less is more. If you're not asked something, do not provide it. So providing low-cost emergency phones to survivors who need one. I kind of read the legislation, and they understand that you are a domestic violence provider and you're working with clients, but they never asked directly if the phone was lost, damaged, removed because it's, property, like that is part of the investigation. It's just if you say that your client needs a replacement cell phone, this is what this covers. So again, don't say that just like, oh, it's damaged because they dropped it on the floor. Just your client needs a replacement cell phone. Also, this is also very, very important. This legislation masks calls and texts made to domestic violence shelters and hotlines. So I want to put a really big asterisk by this. If you are in the course of your work using a cell phone, maybe you're getting reimbursed, maybe you're just like, it's easier for you to use your own personal cell phone and it's okay with your agency. That's what I do because I can't be trusted to look at multiple phones. So I just use my personal phone. However, if I were working with a client and they expected the confidentiality, my cell phone is not connected to UDVC's plan. So my cell phone is just my cell phone. So calls or texts to me, even while I'm working, even though this is might be a client, it is not mass. So I just want to make sure that I state that, and I think it's easier to understand once I say it, but just because you are doing work on a cell phone that has to be yours, this does not fall under this piece of legislation. Okay, so back to the first provision
Kimmi?
underneath. Yes.
Sorry, just one question is, what if the survivor is the account manager? Can the survivor remove the offender from the plan?
Oh, great question. I'm actually going to get to that, but let's stick a pin in that. And I'm going to address it in a slightly different way, but we will definitely get to that. So thank you for that question. So the biggest thing that we really are here to talk about is that this legislation removes domestic violence victims and minor children from the family cell phone plan. So that's a lot. So 3 things to remember. The survivor does not need to remain a customer. Now we have to remember that we are working with a business model that could be on commission, could be very much related to monthly contracts and quotas. So you have to kind of understand the mentality of a cell phone provider. So it's not to say that they're awful people, but they have a different work mentality than what we're doing. So basically, this piece of legislation is kind of taking revenue away from cell phone providers. So they may circumvent this by, some different tactics to encourage the survivor to either remain on the cell phone or start another cell phone plan with the carrier. So it's important to note that the survivor does not need to remain a customer. So they can't say like, oh, we'll take you off the plan. However, you need to start your own plan with us. There are some people that would be like, I know that I'm here at T-Mobile, but I don't even I'm worried I don't even want us to share the same carrier. I'm going to go over to AT&T, or maybe a different cell phone provider has a more affordable plan. Maybe they're, including a new phone with a new contract. It does not matter. It is the survivor's choice whether or not they want to remain a customer or go somewhere else. The survivor does not need to be the primary authorized user. And I think this is kind of going to get back to that question. Now, I believe the question was, can the survivor remove the abuser? Now, they can't do that, but they can remove themselves and the minor children. But the survivor, even though the abuser may be the primary authorized user, the survivor can still make changes to the family billing plan, i.e. getting off of the family billing plan. So why this is really important, when I got divorced, obviously my ex-husband and I were on the same billing plan. When he decided to get off of it and start his new billing plan, you had two. I was the primary authorized user. I was trying to remove him. He wanted to be removed. We were both there at T-Mobile, and it was still very, very difficult. So everyone was trying to cooperate, but we just could not make that happen with a lot of like, well, we can, give you an incentive. We can, throw in this, an iPad. We had a lot of difficulty. And like I said, these are two adults, they're in person trying to make this change happen. So imagine if my ex-husband, who's not the primary authorized user, he was trying to make changes to what was considered my plan. So it's important to note, and your survivor needs to realize and be very clear about this, they do not need to be the primary authorized user. Does that kind of answer the question? I know it's kind of a different way of coming at it, but hopefully that does, but let me know if it doesn't. And again, removal is not contingent on paying additional fees. So some of us, many of us have started our cell phone contracts at possibly a reduced fee, or we had some types of perks that, were available because we were, the contract says we're going to stay for 2 years and then, whatever. So a cell phone provider cannot tell the survivor like, well, we can remove you. However, you broke your contract. You have to pay the remaining balance of, this, and that. Or there's an early termination fee, none of that. So removal is not it's not contingent on paying additional fees. Okay. And I think that's going to be very important because I know that survivors are going in there and they could really be deterred from asking for this if they're hit with all these potential financial hurdles. Okay, so this goes to why we need your help. Obviously with this, we are trying to substantiate to the cell phone provider that this person that's making this request is indeed a survivor of domestic violence. Now, what I have on there are all the different ways someone could substantiate that they have a history of domestic violence. One of the things that I really want to stress is that we are working with people, cell phone providers, that are not coming from a trauma-informed perspective. They don't understand that, about confidentiality. This is a contingent on your funding. This is not their mindset. So I want your client to be very cautious about giving a cell phone provider more information than what they need in order to provide these benefits. So I personally would not feel comfortable giving, Brock at T-Mobile, anything about my mental health carrier, a police report that, has my personal information, court orders, restraining, any official record that has more information than what the cell phone provider is asking for. So I strongly suggest that in order to substantiate that your client is a victim of domestic violence, you provide the authorization. You have a signed letter on your letterhead that this person is a client of your organization, which is a domestic violence service agency, and they are making this request. Now, make sure that you have permission. Now, I would just write this letter and give it directly to your client so that they're the ones providing it. However, I want to make sure that, again, I'm going back to the very beginning. Don't give more information than what is requested. So if you count that client as a, if you put them on your monthly numbers, your service numbers. And so maybe I just called into your hotline with a few questions. If you log my call, if you say this hotline, we received X number of hotline calls, then I am a client of your organization. You provided me with services. You don't have to say this client is in our emergency shelter. You don't have to say they are, in our transitional housing. You don't have to say how long. We've been working with this client for 90 days. You don't have to give any of that information. So less is more. All you have to say on your letterhead and with your contact information, your name, case manager, XYZ agency. All you need to say is that this particular individual is a client of your agency, period. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm happy to answer questions later, but minimal information. And it doesn't mean that one person who's been in your transitional housing and one person who's just called your hotline a few times to ask specific questions. We're not saying that one person deserves, these benefits more than the other. They are just individuals who have interacted with your agency in different ways. So another offshoot of this plan is it's called the Lifeline program. And so this is if a survivor is experiencing any type of financial hardship, which I would say for a majority of clients with reduced or no income, they would probably qualify for this. So I suggest that your agency, your case managers, take a look at this program, because this may be something that you can be proactive about. And you could just say, if someone is trying to manage their budget and they're like, wow, this is pretty lean, we can say, okay, well, for at least 6 months, we can kind of reduce your communications, bills. So look at this program, find out what the qualifications are, and be ready to offer it to your clients if you believe that they would be eligible. Okay, so what happens if there's a problem? Which truly, I mean, how could there not be? So if the issue is that if your client is not able to remove themselves from the plan, I hate to put this back on you and the client, but we need you and your agency to file an FCC complaint. This is the only way that the FCC is going to understand and be able to identify trends and track important issues. So if the complaints are coming in about T-Mobile, especially like in the Western states, they can kind of figure out, okay, what jurisdiction is this? Why are the offices in the Western states not being compliant with this? Is it a training issue? Is it managers saying, don't worry about it? We don't have to do this. It's going to impact our sales numbers. They really do need to be able to track where things are headed. And then also, the FCC, they can impose fines. And, these big companies, they won't necessarily pay attention until they are hit with a fine. So I know that it's just an additional hurdle, but please consider filing a complaint if you believe that your client is not getting the full benefits of this piece of legislation. So I have included the different ways on how to file a complaint, but the reality is online is probably going to be the most efficient. You can also call, but again, you're calling a government agency, it could be a long wait, it could be complicated. And then they also say that you can do this by mail. I highly, please don't do this by mail. Your clients, your work, it's so time intensive that really by mail, it's not going to be effective for your client. So online first, possibly by phone, but definitely let's just avoid like the mail if we can. Okay, I got some of these ideas from a previous, presentation, and I strongly suggest, because you are working with an outside organization, we want to smooth the way for your clients. So the best way I think that you can do this is by being proactive and building your community relationships now. Before you have a client that you're going to send their way, start building the relationships now, and make sure that they understand that they may be getting referrals from your agency. So connect with the local cell phone locations, and you can provide them additional training, support regarding this legislation. Don't just assume that they know. Really, the key is going to be your relationship with your local office, and you have a lot more. You have a lot more chances for success if you're working one-on-one and you have the actual name of the manager, that you've trained their staff, that they have your business card, you're available for follow-up questions if they're like, well, but what about this? So please be proactive and start working on those relationships now. I also suggest that you work and you get a designated employee to get the referrals for your clients. It may be a manager, it may be someone who, is stepping up and like, what, I understand the importance of this. I would love to be the person on file to answer these, issues. I really think not only from a training perspective, but also from a confidentiality. I don't want to send someone over and just say like, oh, speak to anyone who may be working a shift. I really want to send someone. I want you to talk to Amanda. I want you to talk to Steve. They understand this. Then they know what their responsibility is when they get a referral for this piece of legislation. And then if you just don't have the bandwidth, you're like, what, we can get you training if you're open to it, but contact me, contact UWC, and I'm happy to go in to provide the training or partner with you to provide the training. Again, it needs to be your relationship, but I will be happy to provide any level of training that works for you and your relationship, with this particular company. Now, any additional questions? We got 7 minutes.
Any
Vicki,
questions? Sorry, I've just seen if there's any in the room.
okay.
I didn't see any in the chat. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So is it something that you would recommend having people go in person for, or are they able to do it over the phone? Because I know like in our area, there are certain cell phone providers that don't have physical.
So I have looked at some of the larger cell phone providers. Now this goes for any cell phone provider. So it goes to the major ones, AT&T, T-Mobile, those type, but it also goes to some of the smaller plans or the resellers like a Costco or like a Cricket. So some of the big ones actually have this information on their website. So if there's any type of online portal that you can use, I suggest you research that, especially if you're in a rural area or there's not a local office for you to come in and actually talk to someone. And if you don't see something online, I would call the closest one and say, this is the situation. Can we do this over the phone? And so I think that nothing says that you have to come in person. I think that's kind of assumed, but if you have all the provisions and they can do this, over the phone, sometimes they'll ask for a certain number to port the number to somewhere else. Why not? Give it a shot. They can only say like, no, I'm sorry, we need to, have the person, in my store. But if you really do need to handle this, over the phone or remotely, then I definitely think that you should attempt to do so.
Question in the chat is advocates cannot provide things that are under grandma law. That goes through records. Do we just fill out the grandma request with them and request it gets done ASAP?
So I'm sorry. So you're saying that with who are you getting so are you asking for the client's information or providing it to the cell phone provider?
So like the victim, like system-based advocates, they can't necessarily, like, they can't release the police report. It's the, records department, police that has to release that, or for like protective orders. So
Mhm.
she's just asking then, do they need to do a grandma request?
I would
Record.
avoid it. I would absolutely avoid it. Even if you are a systems-based advocate, if you are able to provide that this person is a victim of domestic violence, and I am, this system's advocate, that's all you need to do. So I think in terms of like the ways to substantiate, it's if I, meaning the survivor, gave my police report to the cell phone provider. So not the advocate, but I am providing a the medical or my court order or my divorce decree. So it's not saying that you are releasing this particular information. It's just another way for me to substantiate that I am a survivor of domestic violence. Let me know if that didn't answer the question.
So if they were to do like as a system base, they could do it on their agency's letterhead.
Absolutely. And I suggest that you do so just because it is the least amount of information that you would need to provide. I don't want any police reports going out to, like I said, Brockett, T-Mobile. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want any of that. I want the minimum amount of information to go out. And that would be, I believe, just the letter.
And Kim's just saying that we have had providers asking for the actual documents from clients. Is that legal?
So a provider, meaning a cell phone provider?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
No, they do not need to see that. That list of things that I said could be examples of how to substantiate. Absolutely not. They are not authorized to demand this information. A letter from a domestic violence service provider, agency or court-based, advocate, that is sufficient.
Okay. That's great. So she said, thank you. I will let clients know and file a complaint with the FCC. And then be put in the chat, the FCC complaint link. So.
Absolutely. And if you feel that this is a education or a training issue, I am like, give them my name. I'm happy to go out and do like, at a staff meeting, anything that you feel that I could help with, I'm happy to do so if you just feel like these people are not getting it.
And then just a clarification that it can be a letter from a victim advocate on letterhead. It doesn't have to be an affidavit. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. So a letter, it doesn't need to have a notary republic. It's just as long as you have your agency's letterhead and you just provide your name, your role there, and then your contact information, email or phone, that should be sufficient.
Great questions. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimmy. Such great information, and I'm excited that this act passed, and to see how this all goes forward, and hopefully let our office know too if there are more issues you're seeing, and we'd be happy to help with training, coordinate with Kimmy and do training as well. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This information has to get out there. So, thanks so much for, taking the training and kind of being advocates for this legislation. I think it's going to make a difference for survivors.
And then someone's just asking for the statute reference. I can pull it, but yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Kimmy. We appreciate your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.